right. Good morning, boys and girls. We're going to do Schooled by Gordon Korman again today. And we are going to be doing chapters 28 and 29. We had just heard from Sophie Donnelly, and she had just found Cap. And now we're going to hear from some new people. And what I wanted you to focus on today is that we're getting to the culmination of the book. You can see there's very little left. And so, which character learns the most in these two chapters? I want you to infer this. It's not going to tell us that overtly. So what do they learn? Okay? And it's totally up to you. This is one of the things readers get to examine. Who learns the most? Chapter 28. Name, Mrs. Donnelly. Well, of course I was worried. It was only her first full day as a licensed driver, and she'd been gone for 3 hours. I'd moved past the anger stage. I was no longer even miffed about being stranded at home without transportation. I was already making deals. If Sophie comes home in one piece, I won't strangle her or even ground her. Please, please, let her be okay. To take my mind off the anxiety, I was cleaning out the spare room where Cap had lived for 2 months. I had to say he was the tidiest person in the house, as opposed to Sophie, who used the floor as a display rack for her clothing choices. I couldn't find so much as a speck of dust that had come from Cap. As for clutter, the boy had nothing, so he couldn't possibly leave it lying around. There were a few pieces of schoolwork. One was an essay entitled "The Most Important Inventions of the 20th Century." What had Cap chosen to write about? The telephone? The computer? No. Duct tape. In spite of my nervousness, I couldn't contain a chuckle. I remembered Garland, where duct tape had served every purpose but food. In fact, my sweep netted only one other item, a slip of paper neatly folded in the nightstand drawer. One effervescent bangle, multicolored stones, engraving. All you need is love. My heart turned over in my chest. Sophie's bangle. It was from Cap? He had that much of a crush on her? No. He pretended it was a gift from Bill. In my job, I knew that pure kindness with no strings attached was pretty rare. The boy was an angel. Whatever problems I had with Rain, I had to admit that she'd raised a truly wonderful kid. I stared at the scrawl at the bottom of the receipt. Paid by check. No. I remembered the school's bank statement, the check to the jewelry store. In his innocence, Cap had purchased Sophie's bracelet with money from the Student Activity Fund. I raced to the phone and dialed Frank Kazaski. He wasn't picking up, so I tried his cell. "What?" barked the assistant principal in a very harried tone. "It's Flora Donnelly, Frank. I found out about the check Cap wrote to the jewelry store." "Never mind that," he snapped. "Meet me at the school. There's some kind of riot going on." I was alarmed. "Because you canceled the Halloween dance?" "I don't think so. My custodian called me. The parking lot is full of kids with candles. They told him it's a memorial service for Cap Anderson." I was thunderstruck. "A memorial service? Cap isn't dead." "Well, you seem to be the only one who knows that. That's why I need you there. You're the closest thing to family he has in this town. Maybe you can convince everybody." "I can't get to school," I protested. "Sophie has the car. Sit tight. I'll pick you up in 5 minutes." My hands were shaking as I hung up the phone. Sophie AWOL, the school in turmoil, rumors Cap was dead. What was going on here? Chapter 29. Name, Hugh Winkleman. In the Great Encyclopedia of History, if you look up most stupidity, this was the picture you'd see. 1,100 kids dressed as hippies, crammed belly to belly, in a parking lot, having a candlelight memorial for someone who was probably just fine. I'm going to take this moment to remind you, which character learns the most in these two chapters? What did we just discover from Mrs. Donnelly? What are we going to find out from Hugh Winkleman? And it doesn't have to be one of them. There are other people mentioned. Again, what do you feel people are learning? The idea to dress as Cap hadn't been part of Zach's original plan. Maybe it was the Halloween spirit, but the word had started spreading almost as soon as Zach and I had begun passing the flyers around the school. Picture it. The entire student body decked out in day glow and beads, all except for one brain-dead pair wearing Mickey Mouse masks. The candles had been Zach's idea. We'll need the light, he told me on the way to the dollar store. But their effect was more than either of us could have imagined. Hundreds of tiny flames, glowing orange in the dark, just screamed morning. Dull, flickering shadows reflected off somber faces. Eerie. Zach. I'd spent most of my life either afraid of him, jealous of him, or just hanging there while he stretched the waistband of my underwear over a parking meter. We were never going to be best friends, but I had to admire the guy. He was a genius. Not book smart, but a master when it came to crafting his public image. Somehow, he had positioned himself as head mourner of the Anderson tragedy. Not bad, considering that a couple days ago, he was the villain of the school, him and me. Okay, we deserved that. Setting Cap up at the pep rally was an awful thing to do, and I felt terrible about my part in it. Being angry at Cap was no excuse. I knew better than anyone what it was like to be a target for the Zacks of the world. A lot more than just my conscience was suffering. I was kicked out of the chess club for good. I had a month of detentions and a black mark on my permanent record. And how's this for ironic? The only way to avoid being branded Cap's backstabber was to get myself embroiled in yet another scheme with the same Zach Powers. Beam me up, Scotty. There's no intelligent life on this planet. I approached Zach. So, now what? We're not just going to stand around all night, are we? Chill, he said serenely, jiggling his Dixie cup to keep his candle from going out. We're basking in our sorrow. I was uneasy. I don't know. A third of these kids are positive Cap's dead. A third have him in intensive care, and the rest are just here because everyone else is. The last thing we want to do is give people too much time to think. Good point, Zach agreed. He hoisted himself onto the payload of the school district's flatbed truck and stopped the tape on the boombox, which was playing Here Comes the Sun. He took the karaoke mic and flipped the switch. Attention, everybody. Can I have your attention up here? Considering the size of the crowd, we were a quiet group, gathered in clusters, speaking in hushed tones, almost like this was a funeral. It only took a few seconds before all eyes were on Zach. Thanks for coming. I know if Cap could be here, he'd thank you too. Cap Anderson was our 8th grade president for just 2 months. 2 wild, fantastic months. Now he's gone. And the best way to celebrate his life is to talk about the way he touched our lives. Then, before my amazed eyes, people began to push forward through the crowd and mount the flatbed, awaiting their turn at the microphone. Naomi got there first. I wasn't a nice person, she announced. I was mean to Cap because I thought it would get me what I wanted. Then, I started watching him. He showed me a whole different way to be. How to be sensitive and generous, and not just so people will say thank you, but because it's right. She drew in a tremulous breath. I never even had a chance to tell him there's no Lorelei Lumley. Overcome, she gave up the mic to the 7th grader beside her. I used to be really shy. I didn't have any friends, he confessed. Then Cap let me work on the Halloween dance. I was blown away. One after another, these kids took center stage and poured their hearts out about how Cap had changed their lives. His Tai Chi class helped me lose 11 pounds. I stopped picking on my little brother. I started giving some of my paper route money to charity. Learning about the 60s helped me get along better with my grandparents. My mind was in a whirl. The kids at C Average wouldn't share their innermost feelings if you held a machete to their throat. We lived in constant terror of letting slip some personal or embarrassing detail. We went to incredible lengths to avoid looking vulnerable or uncool. Yet, here they were, lined up to spill their guts like this was an episode of Dr. Phil because Cap had made everything A-okay. Well, I was the number one victim around here, and suddenly, right in front of me, was a golden opportunity to paint myself with the Cap Anderson brush that would make me A-OK too. I just had to get up there in front of the entire student body and join the fan club. As I climbed onto the flatbed, I got my first sense of just how big this event had become. I knew the whole school was there, but now adults were starting to gather around the perimeter. The neighbors, probably, and passerbys. Oh no, it was Mr. Kazaski. I had to say my piece before our assistant principal shut the whole thing down. I grabbed the microphone from a 6th grade girl who insisted that Tai Chi had made her unbeatable in gymnastics. My name is Hugh Winkleman, and I was Cap's first friend at school. I experienced a brief moment of panic. I'd been so intent on getting the floor that I hadn't given a thought to what I should say. 1,100 faces peered earnestly up at me. This was no time to be timid. It was, if I was going to do this, I had to let it all hang out. I bit down hard on the side of my mouth until I felt 2 giant tears well out of my eyes and roll down my cheeks. Cap Anderson was the greatest person it's ever been my honor to know. How are we ever going to get along without our president? I could see Mr. Kazaski pushing through the crowd. It was time to give this a big finish. This was my shining hour. Hugh Winkleman would be the school joke no longer. I dropped the mic to the flatbed, raised both arms to the heavens, and howled, "Cap, you were too young to die!" I could hear sobs breaking out all around me, and then a muffled but strangely familiar voice called, "Hugh, don't cry." I goggled. One of the kids in Mickey Mouse masks waded through the crush to reach the truck. He stopped just below me and pulled off the mouse head. "See?" announced Cap Anderson. "Everything's okay. I'm not dead." I'm going to leave you with that thought. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, which character learns the most in these 2 chapters? Look forward to your thoughts. Bye.